and when I get into something, I tend to hyperfixate really, really bad. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a super exciting video because today is 10 years of BTS. For those of you who don't know, I am an ARMY. I've been ARMY for about exactly 2 years now. Funnily enough, because I became ARMY during BTS's Festa of 2021. Being ARMY is a major part of my personality, I would say. I talk about Bangtan often. It's just like such an exciting day. You know, like the air feels different this month. I'm currently filming this on June 2nd, and we already have like 2 lives coming for Bang Bang Con. 2 lives coming, streaming past concerts and festas. And then tomorrow is June 3rd, and I have August C's concert in theaters. It's just a very exciting time. The, borification of the world during this month? Exciting. Hence the purple today. So in celebration of 10 years of BTS, I am doing book recs based on your BTS bias. I have done something like this before on my Instagram, so I'm going to tell you those recs, what I recommended back then. I think I did this in end of 2021. Tell you what I'm recommending now, and I won't recommend the same book, so there'll be a nice range. And I think the books I recommended in the past still kind of hold up. It will be a fun time. Before I do that, let me tell you a little bit about my ARMY journey. So, like I said, I've been ARMY for 2 years now. I started standing, officially became ARMY back in Festa of 2021. So let me explain how this happened. So my best friend of, how many years now? I think we're going on 8 years. We became friends in 2015. That's 8 years. My best friend of 8 years, her name is V. Not spelled just V the way Kim Taeyong spells it. It's VY. We've been best friends since 2015, and I forget when she became ARMY. She was ARMY for a bit. Like at one point in our friendship, she became ARMY, and so I knew of BTS, and I knew somewhat little things about them. I watched Carpool Karaoke when it came out, and I knew of them. And so it's really funny because I would get her for her birthdays or occasions like that, gifts of BTS merch. Not knowing that one day I too would be a stan. So when Dynamite came out, she never really recommended any songs for me or anything. I knew she liked them, and I watched Carpool Karaoke when it came out with her. And then in 2020, I believe, when Dynamite was released, she sent it to me, and she was like, "Oh, they just dropped this new song. I think you'll like it." And I listened, I was like, yo, this is actually a bop. What are your other favorite songs from them? I'll listen to them too. I'm always down for recommendations, especially for my closest friends. And so she sent me a couple, and I ended up putting Dynamite and Euphoria on my playlist. Back when Dynamite came out, so I think that was 2020. I have the dates of when I looked in my YouTube history when I started watching BTS, so I have the day I watched the Dynamite music video. So for a while, I just it was just a casual listen. I just had 2 of their songs. I do with most of my artists. When I find songs I had the couple I like, and I move on. And then Butter released. So when Butter dropped, she sent it to me again, and she was like, okay, now they just dropped this one, try listening to this. So I listened to Butter, and I was like, wow, I like this a lot too. At this point, if I like 3 of their songs, let me just do a deep dive. And when I get into something, I tend to hyperfixate really, really bad. And so I'll go the whole 9 yards. And so that's what I did. And this wasn't my first experience standing. I was a Directioner back in the day. I was and still am a fan of 5 Seconds of Summer. I don't know what that fandom name is. I think it was 5 Sauce Fam for a bit. I don't know if we have a name. And obviously I'm a fan of books and things and movies and things like that. So not new to the fandom life. So I did my deep dive, did my hyperfixating, and so typically when I want try to get into a new artist, I'll just go to their Spotify profile and listen to their top songs. You know, Spotify has that list of top songs. So I started there, and I started with, what was it? I knew Dynamite, Butter, Euphoria. I took on Boy With Love on Black Swan, Idol, Mic Drop. It was just a bunch of title tracks because those are obviously going to be their top songs on Spotify. And I listened to them, and I was sucked in so fast. The talent of the songs, incredible. I didn't actually know, and I think this is a common theme among people. Most people don't know BTS has rappers. I didn't know that. From Dynamite and Butter, I was like, okay, it's just fun pop, which I, by the way, am a huge fan of. I'm such a pop girly. Okay, they have rappers, this is getting really cool. Okay, I was like, okay, I like these songs, and the cool thing was, I was listening to these songs. I don't speak Korean. I'm listening to them, and I'm getting the emotions of the music and what the song's supposed to be about before even looking at translations. So I typically will look up the translations of the song I'm listening to, so I understand it better. But the fact that those emotions were coming through even before, super cool. So then my next step, by the way, this is all in like the span of one day. I pulled up YouTube. I was like, let me watch some performances, music videos. Let's get into this. So I started watching, and let me tell you, this is what solidified it for me. The performances of the Black Swan performance on James Corden and the Idol performance on Jimmy Fallon blew my mind away. Like, Black Swan on James Corden, first of all, the dance and the music and the song, like, the Black Swan still remains to this day one of my top songs by BTS. Like, it is an incredible song. It shows such range of their music that, in addition to all the other genres they've dominated in, they're also going to take on this like classical, like deep, I don't know how to describe it, it's just amazing, that song. The dance itself is also very like graceful, like a swan, and it has such meaning. You see the emotion, because what Black Swan's about, right, is you're losing your passion for what you love doing the most, and that's a fate worse than death for them. And seeing that passion come across in the lyrics and the dance. So I watched that performance and my jaw was on the floor, and I was like, okay, I think I'm here to stay. But like, to solidify it further, I then watched the Idol performance on Jimmy Fallon. Idol is such an intense, extremely difficult dance, and it's done in such a small space. Like, the Jimmy Fallon stage is not that big to do such an intense dance in, and I was like, whoa, they're talented, and I was in. Set for life. Some armies like know the exact date they became Army. It's kind of for me a range, but I actually did watch I did watch the 2021 Suwuzu. I can never pronounce that right, by the way. Suwuzu muster, the concert. I watched that one live because my sister's other friend was Army and she was watching it, so we watched it all together. At that point, I kind of knew their names at that point, so that's why I don't have an exact date, but it was around that time, and it kind of just kept going from there. I started watching Run BTS episodes. I started making a playlist at one point. Can you believe my playlist in the beginning was like 7 hours, and then look at it now. The difference is crazy. And then through that, what the craziest thing is, through being BTS Army, I've met some of my closest friends. After Butter came out, I was starting to get into the BTS world. I saw Melek, who is at Melek Writes on Instagram, posting about Butter on her story and posting BTS, and I was like, I slid up and I was like, oh, I just started listening to this too, and we get to chatting, and before you know it, fast forward 2 years, she's one of my closest online friends. I never actually physically met her. We're getting there. I'm gonna hop on a plane to London one day, and to the point where she like fully like took my hand and guided me through everything BTS wise, like understanding the storyline of the music videos, what episodes of this to watch, what interviews to watch, what content's out there that I can watch, where I could watch those, and just being someone I could talk to. And then that developed from me and Melek talking to, I don't know how this group chat came about. I have a group chat with Melek and Zulfa, the author of Lemon Trees, because we were actually friends before her book came out, before I even read her book. We became friends because of the fact that we were both Army. And so now I have this group chat of Melek, me, and Zulfa, and we chat on it like daily, about BTS and just anything else we want to talk about. And it's just the fact that I have two of my closest friends from all of us standing BTS, but they've both been such like incredible joys in my life, and I can't imagine my life without meeting them, and that's all because of BTS. Getting a little emotional here. And so that's my journey of an Army. I've been here 2 years strong, and you know, I'll be here till 2025 and more. I do have a time capsule, actually. I never posted this video, but I did make a time capsule when the hiatus was announced. So I made a time capsule and I put like little knickknacks and some of my merch in there. And that's not going to be open until 2025. And I wrote a letter to future Besma. So I have that. It's sitting up here. And I'll shelf really quick. This is like my K-pop shelf. First we have this on my wall. This was actually a birthday gift recently. My Suzu DVD, some of my albums. I do have a 17 album in there as well. My Army Light Stick. Clean, by the way, clean coffee cups, gin, and then we have my painting of Wildflower Namjoon. My time capsule sits right behind Wildflower Namjoon, which is a painting I painted, actually. That painting I painted, I just showed you. Actually, I submitted that for the Indigo art thing on the website, and I actually got accepted. So at some point, my art and my initials were on the BTS website. How cool is that? And you know, maybe Namjoon possibly saw it. We don't know. Who knows? I'm a tiny bit delulu. So that's how I became Army. Now let's get into these book recs. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm recommending these books based on your BTS bias, or if I ever met BTS, this is what I try to recommend to them. I'm not gonna tell you who my bias is actually. I'm gonna let you try to guess, and I'll reveal it at the end of the video. But maybe let me know in the comments who you thought my bias was, whether that's from this video specifically or whether it's because you know me. Let's see. We're gonna go in fancy order, starting with Kim Namjoon, also known as RM, leader of BTS. Now, Namjoon is known for his love of reading, and out of all the members, if I met any of these members, Namjoon would be the first person I would recommend a book to. You've seen it in his content. He has like stacks of books all over his house. Like, he's just like me for real. Back in 2021, in June, I recommended Raber, which by the way, I still stand behind those two recommendations. Raber is a African inspired fantasy with a wonderful found family, and I feel like Namjoon would enjoy that. I've read one of his recommendations before, and that was I Wanted That But I Need to Book It, which is somewhere down here. And from that, and I think of the other books he's talked about, he's kind of a reader for me that likes to gain something from the book he's reading, whether that's a lesson he's learning or maybe just a different outlook on life. And so for his recommendations, I wanted to pick books that leave some sort of impact after you've read them. And for this selection, both my books are actually by Muslim authors. What a sly. My first recommendation is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grows by Zulfa, one of my army friends. And so for those of you who have not heard me talk about lemon trees enough, Lemon Trees is a book about two teenagers still stuck in war-torn Syria, and it is them with their families trying to survive. And in the midst of all the tragedy and the horror that they're facing, still trying to hold on to their hope and humanity. It is a beautiful, beautiful read. It is YA with some significant trigger warnings, so I'll put those on the screen. By the way, I'm not just like recommending this because the author is my friend and is also an army and would, I think, probably pass away if Namjoon or any of the members read her book. But genuinely, the way this book leaves you, I think I've previously described this book as a book that will break your heart and then put you all back together. Like, it's going to destroy you, but you'll be a better person because of it. And I think this is one of those books that Namjoon would appreciate. It's a different outlook on life. Like I think I said before about this book, a lot of us live in a bubble. And it's a bubble of peace. You know, we have privileges that sometimes we're not aware of. This book's going to pop that bubble. And it's going to leave you changed, but it's a good change. And that's why this is one I'd really, really recommend to Namjoon, like, sincerely. I feel like he would really take it seriously and think about it. And it would leave an impact on him. And you too, whoever's watching this. And then my second book for Namjoon is a poetry collection, actually, called My Ancestors Did Not Breathe This Air. From this title alone, before I read this book, I was like impacted. And this is a collection of poetry written by 6 Muslim women who all met when they were studying in MIT. And it touches on topics from family to immigration to racism to love to faith, etc., etc. It is a beautiful collection of poetry. You know, I've had some of my favorites in here. So many poems a lot of people can relate to. I'm not a massive poetry person, but I really, really enjoyed this, and it really left a lasting impact on me. I don't know if Namjoon's a poetry person, but I have a feeling he would like this one. Especially because I think he's spoken before on like his own culture and having to balance that with, I'm not putting words in his mouth. I think I read an article where he talked about this recently, with the Western's perception of them, of like K-pop and Korean culture. So I think this would be an interesting read for him, and I feel like he would appreciate and it'd have an impact on him. So those are my two picks from June. Kim Seok-jin, our astronaut. For Jin, I originally recommended All the Stars and Teeth, which is a pirate book because of his love of fishing and the ocean, and I feel like you would enjoy that. So for Jin, I was trying to think of funny books. Jin is a funny guy. I think, you know, he prides himself on his dad jokes. I think he'd enjoy like a good comedic book. And so for that reason, I chose To Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. This is a book about a engaged couple who have fallen out of love with each other, but whoever breaks off the engagement has to pay for the costs of the wedding and everything that's already booked. So to do that, they're stuck in this like tug of war of who can annoy the other more to get the other one to call off the engagement and pay those bills. It is laugh out loud funny. When I tell you, I was listening to this book at work, like audiobook, and I burst out laughing. And if you can imagine like a dead silent office and I'm just there dying because this book is so funny. I feel like Jin would enjoy this. Like, this is laugh out loud funny. The things they do to each other are hilarious. He might get some ideas, honestly, to start some pranks on Jungkook. And it's like a good romance, and I feel like Jin would appreciate this. So that's my first recommendation. I am doing 2 recommendations per member. Second recommendation for Jin. This one, our worldwide handsome, loves video games. And this is actually a book written by an army. For those of you who don't know, Marie Lu is an army. And in her most recent book, Stars and Smokes, which is not this book, she actually mentions BTS in her acknowledgments. And she has posted on her her Instagram and whatnot, she's gone to the PTD concerts and things like that. I think her bias is actually Jimin. I might be wrong about that. And there is a random character named Jimin in this book, by the way, in the second book of this series. But this is a book that's been comped to Ready Player One. It's a world of immersive video games. The main character is a hacker that hacks into the game, but ends up glitching into the game and becomes an overnight sensation. There's like a underlying sinister plot. I feel like Jin would appreciate this, for his love of gaming, and then the fact that there's such a complex world, and the plot, there's a lot of plot twists you don't see coming. I feel like you'd appreciate this. This is a duology. You Deserve Each Other was a standalone, this one is a duology. And those are my recommendations for Jin. Min, Yoongi, Suga, Augusty, all the names. Here are my recommendations for him. With his most recent album, D-Day, we've learned a lot, and his documentary that just came out, The Road to D-Day, we learned a lot about Yoongi that I think previously he wouldn't talk as much of. We know that he exists in 3 personas, in Suga, BTS, Min Yoongi, and Augusty. The most notable being the Suga versus Augusty personas, where Augusty is intense and has a lot of anger and more of like I don't want to say destroying type, but it's a very like Augusty is a very, very angry persona. There's a lot of rage there, which is why I'm recommending All My Rage, because through Augusty's mixtapes and his albums and his music videos, a lot of rage in Augusty, and rightfully so. And the rage comes from this mistreatment and unfairness of the world, and Yoongi as Augusty is just angry at the world, angry at his situation, and he just wants to get it out. And so much of that album, and especially with his most recent D-Day album, where he talks in Amiglada about his trauma and the anger from that and wanting to save himself from the situation he was in, reminded me so much of All My Rage. All My Rage, first of all, is a tear-jerking book. I'll put trigger warnings as well for this one on the screen. It is about 2 Muslim teenagers stuck in this town that is going to swallow them up if they don't get out. And they are losing themselves to all sorts of outside influences. And there's this undercurrent of rage that builds and builds and builds throughout the book, that you understand why this book is called All My Rage by the end of it. And I think I've said before, Saba Tahir, the author, has talked about how it took her 10 years to write this book. And I had said in my review, it might take me 10 years to recover from it. I read this book in 2021, and I have yet to reread it. That's how much of the impact it's had on me that I feel like I still am not ready to pick it up. I might reread it soon, actually. But it's a incredible, incredible book. I feel like Yoongi might be able to relate to this book, as well as maybe just like come to terms with, and I mean, Yoongi as a person is like, he's talked about how he's recovered a lot, and that's why he's retiring Augusty, because he no longer has that anger. And I feel like this would be a good book for him to read. I feel like he'd enjoy this one and find it relatable and represented in. Funny enough, my original recommendation for Yoongi back in 2021 was actually An Ember in the Ashes by the same author, which is a Roman/South Asian inspired fantasy. Next book for Yoongi. This book is called Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling. This book for me I picked for more of Yoongi's fun side that we've been seeing a lot more lately in his content, as he does his promotions and his tours and all that. This is like, out of all his 3 personas, this one is Min Yoongi, the just delightful, fun, cute, giggly side we've been seeing. This is such a fantastic romance book. It's super, super sweet. But in addition to being such a good, cute, light romance, it's young adult, by the way, this book also touches on identity. These 2 teenagers have like these more confident versions of themselves that they put up around each other and around other people, but they don't always feel like that's necessarily true. And there's sort of this struggle to fit into who they really are and take ownership of their identity while they're falling in love and being super cute. And I feel like this is a book, for someone like Yoongi who has these different personas and different interpretations of himself, would enjoy this, enjoy that commentary, as well as enjoying a super cute, fun, lovable romance. Like, you know, and I feel like Reggie would do the Am I Cute challenge with him. Jungho Suk, also known as JHope, also known as Hobie, also known as Jay. Got a lot of names here. My original recommendation for Hobie was Love from A to Z. It's just a super fun, light romance. I feel like he'd be into that. I feel like Hobie really is like a contemporary romance type of guy. So I do have another recommendation for him for this one. I'm just gonna put it on the screen because to take it out right now is gonna be such a hassle. So the book I'm picking for Hobie is called I'll Be the One, which is about a Korean American teenager who is going to audition for a Korean talent show that is being hosted in the US, I believe. And she is a plus size singer and dancer. Because of the fact that she's plus size, she faces a lot of backlash. And so this book touches a lot on the stigma against plus size people in Korean culture, media, etc. There are a lot of name drops in this book. She talks about different groups. She does at one point Dance to Idol by BTS. I feel like Hobie would like this book, first of all, as to the fact that she's a dancer and there's a lot of dance knowledge and stuff in there. As well as the fact that it's just a lovable book. A teenager who's so passionate about dancing, and that I feel that's the passion he can definitely relate to. Fun fact, the person on this cover is actually a TikToker who covers K-pop dances, and I will tag her somewhere in this. But I didn't like put the two and two together until I got the book, and I was like, wait, I know this person. She I think she danced with Kepler at a KCON too. Super cool. Anyway, Hobie would love both the TikToker and this book, in my opinion. JHope's second recommendation, because he showed us kind of like a darker side of him in Jack in the Box with more arson and the rest of that album, I'm actually gonna recommend kind of a darker read. And this may not be like super dark for a lot of people, because I don't read like horror, thriller, or any of those. So I'm actually gonna recommend Six of Crows. I feel like Hobie, first of all, would really vibe with like the found family that's there. He'd appreciate the humor that is there, but then maybe enjoy Kaz Brecker's character in terms of like, you know, there's a line of like, I'm still not enough, and then there's this urge to like redeem or become a better person. He'd enjoy the crows and have fun with that storyline, as well as enjoying Kaz Brecker's like moods and stuff. Not as easy as it looks to come up with these recommendations. Alright, I went Kim Namjoon, Kim Seokjin, Min Yoongi, Jungho Suk, Park Jimin. Jimin's original recommendations was the Inheritance Games for a fun mystery. Once again, he's super smart. He could probably figure that out. Park Jimin, I've been thinking about, and I think I have her recommendations. First one is going to be The Gilded Wolves. First of all, Jimin reminds me of Severin, I believe his name is pronounced. He kind of has like the flair for the arts and the appreciation for arts and history that we see in The Gilded Wolves. The Gilded Wolves also really depends on like high society and high maintenance things, and I feel like Jimin would have appreciation for that, so I feel like he'd really enjoy that book. Also, Jimin's like super smart, and that book for me was so hard to understand the world building, so he might have a better understanding of that book's world than I did. Second book I'm gonna recommend is Tokyo Ever After. Now, Jimin likes romances. He likes The Notebook. Side note, I did not like The Notebook, so trying to find a book rec based on that movie he likes was a little hard. And so Tokyo Ever After is a normal, everyday teenager who gets suddenly whisked away to be Japan's next princess because her father that she never knew ended up being the Prince of Japan. What? When I was talking about this in our group chat, Zulfa was like, you should just recommend this because Park Jimin is a literal prince. And I was like, let's go for it. And I feel like he actually would enjoy this book. And there is a little bit of like that give and take and the slow burn that I think exists in The Notebook, because I didn't like that movie enough to pay attention, but he'd enjoy that book. Next we have Kim Taehyung. I have the perfect recommendation from Kim Taehyung with The Last Palace. Kim Taehyung, also known as V, by the way. First of all, V seems to love historical things. He was in the historical drama, I think pronounced Hara Wang. Seems to have a love for period pieces. This book takes place in, I forget what year, 1758 Korea. It is a palace nurse who is investigating a series of murders. She's not supposed to be investigating, but she is. And so this has like a mystery, a very slow burn romance, and that air of historical fiction that I feel like Tae would love. This book for me like just screams Kim Tae-young would love this book, and I think he really will. When I first did this recommendation, I recommended These Blinding Lights for along the same reasons, that it's a historical fiction mystery that I feel like V would enjoy. Second book for Tae is going to be theme of his other loves of like classics, jazz. You know, his photo folio was like very British, very English. So there seems to be this love of the classics. So I wanted to do a classics retelling. And so for that reason, I'll be recommending Aisha at Last, which is a Muslim Pride and Prejudice retelling. Such a fun twist on the classic with Muslim rep and family pressures and everything that was in the original book, but make it Muslim. I feel like Tae would enjoy this as a lover of the classics and just enjoy a fun book. Last but absolutely never least, we have Jungkook. So Jungkook was a little bit of a harder nut to crack because I wasn't sure specifically what he would like. I ended up going with a fantasy book and a sci-fi book that I feel like he would enjoy. First recommendation for Jungkook is Last of the Talons, which is a Korean-inspired fantasy. This book is so fast-paced, so fun. I know Jungkook would eat this up. Like, I know JK would be there for a good time. There's a character named Namjoon, so he'd be like, oh my god, Namjoon. Which is it's actually what I did when I first read that passage. The last surviving member of the Talon gang is forced to work for their rivals who murdered her entire gang because they have her sister held hostage. As part of servitude to them, she is forced to steal this tapestry, not knowing its significance. I'm sorry if I'm gonna butcher this. Dokebi, which is an immortal being with powers. And so she's whisked away to his world, and so much goes on from there. Super intense book, super fun fantasy. JK would love it. Second book for JK I'm recommending, actually a sci-fi dystopia called Goddess in the Machine. Her name's Andra. They're on a journey. She wakes up on the planet, but at the wrong time, all alone. And this book will take you through her journey and everything that happens, from meeting the locals to uncovering some truths about what really happened. Super intense. I feel like JK would be like writing theories and stuff. Like, he would enjoy this book. And those are my recommendations for your BTS bias and basically what I'd recommend to the members. At the beginning of this video, I told you that I would be telling you my bias at the end. I hoped you've all guessed and wrote it somewhere. If not, pause and do it right now. My bias is Yoongi. I actually, when I first started, biased Taeyang, and then and I think I biased Rex like JK, and then I eventually started bias wrecking Yoongi. And then he just kept sneaking up on me, and he's been my bias. I think he became my like bias within the first year of standing, and he's just been there since. For good reason. I love Yoongi. I find him as such a relatable and comforting member, and my bias tracker is Namjoon. A lot of people say that your bias is a lot about you, so those are two pieces of info. I don't know how much they say about me, but I hope you've enjoyed these book recommendations. I hope some of you guys pick some of them up and enjoy them as well. And happy 10 years to BTS. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for teaching us how to love ourselves, and we'll be with you guys for the rest of our lives. Alright, thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye!